Well, last week I was in Washington, D.C., and with all the shenanigans going on with Biden stepping down from the Democrat nomination for president and Kamala Harris becoming the heir apparent, there was also the visit from the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, Netanyahu's White House visit and Congress was his first since before former President Donald Trump left office in 2020. And he addressed a joint session of Congress at the Capitol last Wednesday afternoon. It's the fourth time he's done that. Now, I actually popped down to the Capitol on Wednesday morning to check out the action, and security fences everywhere. The grounds were locked down. There was more police, FBI and Secret Service than possibly there are police in total in New Zealand. There were fences and trucks blocking highways. As you can see, the stage set up there outside the Capitol for the Palestinian protest. I mean, it was secure as fences right around the perimeter of that Congress building, the Capitol, which is a large area. It actually made me wonder why they didn't do the same on that infamous January day 4 years ago. I wonder why not. Anyway, I want to show you parts of the speech in context. Parts of the speech that you probably haven't heard or seen. You might have seen kind of a report of what he said. I saw a little bit on the New Zealand media, but it's time to hear the Israeli side in context. You deserve to hear all sides, not just what the mainstream media feeds you. So let's do it. So here's the first clip. This is Benjamin Netanyahu, and at the beginning of his speech, he outlined that horrific day from October the 7th.
Forever live in infamy. It was the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah. It began as a perfect day, not a cloud in the sky. Thousands of young Israelis were celebrating at an outdoor music festival. And suddenly, at 6:29 a.m., as children were still sleeping soundly in their beds in the towns and kibbutzim next to Gaza, suddenly heaven turned into hell. 3,000 Hamas terrorists stormed into Israel. They butchered 1,200 people from 41 countries, including 39 Americans. Proportionately, compared to our population size, that's like 20 9/11s in one day. And these monsters, they raped women, they beheaded men, they burned babies alive, they killed parents in front of their children, and children in front of their parents. They dragged 255 people, both living and dead, into the dark dungeons of Gaza. Israel has already brought home 135 of these hostages, including 7 who were freed in daring rescue operations.
Yeah, I mean, there's still hostages to come. It's to be released. I mean, it's sobering, isn't it? It's the truth of that horrendous day that remains etched in our minds. There was a peace agreement on October the 6th. It wasn't Israel that broke it. It was terrorist group Hamas. This next clip is a bit longer, but it gives the background to who is really behind all of this terrorism. It also shows just how much Americans treasure their national flag. And how often would you hear New Zealand politicians chanting, New Zealand, New Zealand? We just don't sort of do that stuff. And I've taken a little bit of editorial discretion, as you will see during this slightly longer clip of Netanyahu.
To make the simple distinction between those who target terrorists and those who target civilians, between the democratic state of Israel and the terrorist thugs of Hamas. We recently learned from the National Security Director, U.S. Director of National Intelligence, that Iran is funding and promoting anti-Israel protests in America. They want to disrupt America. So these protesters burn American flags even on the 4th of July. And I wish to salute the fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina who protected the American flag against these anti-Israel protesters.
Okay, you won't hear that in New Zealand Parliament.
Iran is funding the anti-Israel protests that are going on right now outside this building. Not that many, but they're there, and throughout the city. Well, I have a message for these protesters. When the tyrants of Tehran, who hang gays from cranes and murder women for not covering their hair, are praising, promoting, and funding you, you have officially become Iran's useful idiots. Some of these protesters, and it's amazing, absolutely amazing, some of these protesters hold up signs proclaiming gays for Gaza. They might as well hold up signs saying chickens for KFC.
I think you stole that line off me, actually.
These protesters chant from the river to the sea, but many don't have a clue what river and what sea they're talking about. They not only get an F in geography, they get an F in history. They call Israel a colonialist state. Don't they know that the land of Israel is where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob prayed, where Isaiah and Jeremiah preached, and where David and Solomon ruled? For nearly 4,000 years, the land of Israel has been the homeland of the Jewish people. It's always been our home. It will always be our home.
Yep.
It's not only the campus protesters who get it wrong. It's also the people who run those campuses. 80 years after the Holocaust, the presidents of Harvard, Penn, and I'm ashamed to say my alma mater, MIT, couldn't bring themselves to condemn the calls for the genocide of Jews. You remember what they said? They said, it depends on the context. Well, let me give these befuddled academics a little context. Anti-Semitism is the world's oldest hatred. For centuries, the massacre of Jews was always preceded by wild accusations. We were accused of everything from poisoning wells, to spreading plagues, to using the blood of slaughtered children to bake Passover matzahs. These preposterous anti-Semitic lies led to persecution, mass murder, and ultimately to history's worst genocide, the Holocaust. Now, just as malicious lies were leveled for centuries at the Jewish people, malicious lies are now being leveled at the Jewish state. No, don't applaud. Listen. The outrageous slanders that paint Israel as racist and genocidal are meant to delegitimize Israel, to demonize the Jewish state, and to demonize Jews everywhere. And no wonder we've witnessed an appalling rise of anti-Semitism in America and around the world. My friends, whenever and wherever we see the scourge of anti-Semitism, we must unequivocally condemn it and resolutely fight it, without exception. And don't be fooled when the blood libels against the Jewish state come from people who wear fancy silk robes and speak in lofty tones about law and justice. Here's a case in point. The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has shamefully accused Israel of deliberately starving the people of Gaza. This is utter, complete nonsense. It's a complete fabrication. Israel has enabled more than 40,000 aid trucks to enter Gaza. That's 500,000 tons of food. And that's more than 3,000 calories for every man, woman, and child in Gaza. If there are Palestinians in Gaza who aren't getting enough food, it's not because Israel is blocking it, it's because Hamas is stealing it. So much for that lie, but here's another. The ICC prosecutor accuses Israel of deliberately targeting civilians. What in God's green earth is he talking about? The IDF has dropped millions of flyers, sent millions of text messages, made hundreds of thousands of phone calls to get Palestinian civilians out of harm's way. But at the same time, Hamas does everything in its power to put Palestinian civilians in harm's way. They fire rockets from schools, from hospitals, from mosques. They even shoot their own people when they try to leave the war zone. A senior Hamas official, Fatri Hamad, boasted, listen to this, he boasted that Palestinian women and children excel at being human shields. His words, excel at being human shields. What monstrous evil. For Israel, every civilian death is a tragedy. For Hamas, it's a strategy. They actually want Palestinian civilians to die so that Israel will be smeared in the international media and be pressured to end the war before it's won. This would enable Hamas to survive another day and, as they vowed, to carry out October 7th again and again and again. Well, I want to assure you, no matter what pressure is brought to bear, I will never allow that to happen.
Yeah. Have you heard that narrative in the mainstream media? No, I haven't either. It's fascinating to get the full story, just two shorter clips. And it's based on, if Hamas laid down their weapons, there would be no more war. If Israel laid down their weapons, there would be no more Israel. But this is where Netanyahu talks about a vision for Gaza.
My dear friends, the war in Gaza could end tomorrow if Hamas surrenders, disarms, and returns all the hostages.
Yep.
But if they don't, Israel will fight until we destroy Hamas's military capabilities, end its rule in Gaza, and bring all our hostages home. That's what total victory means, and we will settle for nothing less. The day after we defeat Hamas, a new Gaza can emerge. My vision for that day is of a demilitarized and de-radicalized Gaza. Israel does not seek to resettle Gaza, but for the foreseeable future, we must retain overriding security control there to prevent the resurgence of terror, to ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. Gaza should have a civilian administration run by Palestinians who do not seek to destroy Israel. That's not too much to ask. It's a fundamental thing that we have a right to demand and to receive. A new generation of Palestinians must no longer be taught to hate Jews, but rather to live in peace with us. Those twin words, demilitarization and de-radicalization, those two concepts were applied to Germany and Japan after World War II, and that led to decades of peace, prosperity, and security. Following our victory, with the help of regional partners, the demilitarization and de-radicalization of Gaza can also lead to a future of security, prosperity, and peace. That's my vision for Gaza.
Yeah, probably a vision that you haven't heard because he hasn't been allowed to speak it or it hasn't been reported. And finally, probably a part of the speech that the Democrats weren't that stoked about. It was actually a tribute to former President Trump's policies while he was in office.
I want to thank President Trump for his leadership in brokering the historic Abraham Accords. Like Americans, Israelis were relieved that President Trump emerged safe and sound from that dastardly attack on him, dastardly attack on American democracy. There is no room for political violence in democracies. I also want to thank President Trump for all the things he did for Israel, from recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, to confronting Iran's aggression, to recognizing Jerusalem as our capital and moving the American embassy there. That's Jerusalem, our eternal capital, never to be divided again.
Okay, let's leave it there. It was a powerful speech. He spoke for about 50 minutes with lots of standing ovations. They do that in America, standing ovations, a lot of them. But you probably didn't hear the guts of this speech, but I think you deserve to. And now you have. Please share it with friends so that they can hear all sides of this important issue.